Yo, parish orphans and retrogrades. Important episode today. There's a lot going on in the world, and a lot of it, if you're online much at all, revolves still around the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And much of that fallout has surrounded Candace Owens, who has made some interesting claims about Charlie Kirk's death. There's been some speculation about what her speculation might mean. But at the very least, she said that Charlie Kirk was definitely becoming Catholic. She made this claim strongly. I was talking about it the day he died and the day after he died, that from Candace, he said, Charlie was almost Catholic. He's ready. He's praying the daily rosary. He's going to mass. He's ready to convalidate or get his marriage convalidated in the church. She also said that according to his evangelical to Catholic metamorphosis of mindset, as he was coming more Catholic, his ideological politics of the world were changing, were shifting, particularly those in regard to Israel. And this isn't much of a stretch conceptually. It's not much of a stretch to think as you become more Catholic, you're going to start viewing the world in a more Catholic way. You're going to stop viewing the world in an evangelical, dispensationalist, Zionist way, and you're going to look at it like a Catholic. And we have a very, very different view as Catholics about Israel and Judaism than the evangelicals do. So she's been saying this for 3 weeks. She also said, I'm not going to go to the memorial. It seems federalized. I think she was pretty clearly vindicated on the memorial service, the Charlie Kirk memorial service. It was a bunch of propaganda. They were literally registering people to vote there. It was as little about Charlie Kirk the man as I think it could possibly be. There were some mentions of Charlie Kirk the man, but it was all about Turning Point USA, enrolling new chapters. It was pure propaganda. In addition to a lot of evangelical soft rock bands, that was really bad, and it left one hankering for the D.A. Irae to memorialize this, good man. I disagreed with him on a lot of stuff, but that has no bearing on what the funerary conversation ought to be. So that was tacky, and she looked kind of vindicated there, but especially given the fact they were registering voters. They were trying to open new TPUSA chapters. She looked vindicated there. We defended, Steph and I were out there defending Erica Kirk early. Things started looking strange the second week and the third week after Charlie Kirk died, when she was out there, clearly not in this procedurally proper mourning process. Now, I know we live after the death of civilization. The cracks in the walls showed up 100 years ago, and it died sometime about 50 years ago, civil society. But there is a way to mourn and to step up and to be CEO and all that. We were trying to defend her. I still have some tweets. I don't like to take down tweets where I was like, look, she seems really into him, but there's some strange stuff happening. So as Candace had called it all, it looks a little bit more coordinated. It looks a little bit like perhaps the big issue, the big corollary with his evangelical to Catholic shift of mind, assuming that premise is true, is his view on Israel was shifting. And everyone said, that's nonsense. TPUSA is very Zionist, very pro-Israel. They were all calling or insinuating Candace was a liar. And then 2 days ago, Candace Owens produced a text conversation that was 9-part. One of the participants, one of them was Charlie Kirk, right? Obviously, the main part. Sorry. The other one that she named was Josh Hammer, who's a guy I've had run-ins with. I've had a public debate with him at Ole Miss. Very, very uncordial public debate. Jewish Josh Hammer, very pro-Zionist Josh Hammer. Not a nice guy, not a nice little guy, in my view. And so he has been silent, hasn't he? I keep checking his Twitter account to see if he's weighed in since Candace 2 days ago published this 9-part conversation, which, drumroll please, vindicated what she said. Charlie's like, I lost a $2 million Jewish donor because I wouldn't cancel my friendship with Tucker Carlson or with you, Candace. Tucker and Candace are anti-Israel.
Did you want me to read the tweet?
Yeah, let's read that. And the fact of the matter is, she's like, I'm not going to tell you who the other 7 participants are, but I'll tell you, one was Josh Hammer,
which is really funny.
It completely vindicated her characterization of things over the last 3 weeks. I'm not saying this for any reason other than just the facts. We're going to talk today about credibility and what it requires.
What's interesting about this is that she was saying this for weeks, and like, I guess, I don't know if she had this in her arsenal, so to speak, this text conversation, but she's put it out there that Charlie Kirk was walking away from the Zionist cause. Of course, everybody freaked out and like just went bananas on Twitter for several weeks, and then boom, here comes this group chat that she released, and I'll read it now. It's on the screen, but here's what is said for people who are listening on podcast and aren't seeing. Charlie Kirk says, just lost another huge Jewish donor, $2 million a year because we won't cancel Tucker. I'm thinking of inviting Candace. Then somebody else in the group chat says, ugh. Then Charlie Kirk says, Jewish donors play into all the stereotypes. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. And then the last one that I can see on here is, and somebody else says, please don't invite Candace. That might feel good short term, but it's not good long term, in my opinion. Like all groups, you're going to get a wide variety of opinions. That nasty free will thing that God bestowed on us makes life frustrating at times. And then they mentioned something about letting the dust settle a little bit. So she released this, 2 days ago, basically proving everything that she said. And in the interim, people, when she released this text, everyone was saying it was fake, right? Yeah. Everybody came out and said, oh, this could be easily faked. She's lying. How did she get this? All that sort of jazz. So
sure. And she was vindicated yesterday by none other than TPUSA, who got out ahead of the story. But I want to say that there is this conceptual connection between Charlie's alleged turnaround on Catholicism and his alleged turnaround on Israel, Jews, Zionism, because the real Catholic view that we've tried to soften in the post-conciliar era, but it's still out there and everyone knows it, was expressed by Pope Pius X. You cannot, Catholics really can't. He wrote this to Theodore Herzl, a major Zionist, one of the leading Zionists, arguably in the world at the time, said Catholics really, the most we can do to support Zionism is we wait there in the Holy Land to convert you guys. Other than that, we can't really support it, right? Because of who you guys are, who killed Jesus, things like that. So that's the Catholic view. And so Charlie, as he was becoming more Catholic, he was becoming less Zionist, less pro-Israel, less pro-Jew. And he remarked in August, he was killed on September the 10th. He remarked in middle August to a friend, he was getting worried, that they wouldn't stand for him reversing his position. How is this little? It's good that we've waited this long to do this show because there are all kinds of college chapters of little political thing. How is it like too big to fail, like some bank in 2008, 2009? How is Turning Point USA just like a non-college guy doing a kind of college thing where he's saying, hey, I want to have actual dialogue on college campuses with liberals. How is that like $500 million, $200 million? That doesn't make any sense. It's pro-Israel. And now you find out, Steph was saying this yesterday, these $2 million donors, which Charlie's like, they're so stereotypical, are Jewish, are pro-Israel, are a lot of times from Israel, and they give to the tune of 7 or 8 figures. It's insane. So I guess my take on it is this is what's been going on, because I know there are some people in the audience that might not have heard, but yesterday Candace was vindicated by her opponents, Turning Point USA.
I'll play that for you right now.
Yeah. Well, first, let me play something really quick
Okay.
where she's just making the connection between, all the Israel stuff, which is what makes this explosive. People used to joke, Islam, that's explosive. Old The Office joke. Well, actually, Israel makes things the most explosive. But the reason that he probably was turning around, the efficient cause is most likely the fact that he was becoming Catholic in his worldview.
Spiritual changes towards the end. Catholics were hoping that he'd take the next step because he was praying the rosary. I never said he converted because he didn't. That would have been dishonest. But people were somehow really angry. Somebody clearly hit the panic button. Suddenly a bunch of videos were being made disputing the narrative. People were going, I knew Charlie and he was truly evangelical to his core. Blah, 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 blah. And I want to tell you this, it felt coordinated. It felt fake. It felt unnecessary. But most importantly, it was untrue. Okay, it was untrue. And I'm going to share with you some more truth so that you can contextualize it. Charlie was attending Mass weekly. He was sometimes even attending Mass daily. He was not attending Pastor Rob McCoy's church. As I mentioned before, yes, he was praying the rosary. Charlie, in fact, was wearing the St. Michael pendant when he died, okay? As has already been publicized, Erica took a Catholic bishop with her to pray over his body on the day that he died. These are all indisputable facts. And it is also a fact, which was presented by Megyn Kelly, that a few weeks before his death, Erica had a priest come over to pray over them when some witches thought it would be funny, whatever, to put a hex on him. Okay? That's a lot of things that were happening behind the scenes. And the people at Turning Point USA knew those things to be true. Okay? They knew everything that I just shared with you. They knew for a fact. So I was a bit astonished when Andrew Colvett and Alex Clark similarly jumped in this inauthentic attempt to dissuade the idea that Charlie was softening on Catholicism. It read to me like just sheer hatred of Catholics for no reason at all. Here's what they said. I'll jog your memory. I want you to listen to this now in the context of all of the additional details that I just shared with you. Okay? Take a listen. Was he becoming Catholic?
No. But he really loved Catholic Mass. He loved the ritual of it. He loved the beauty of old Catholic churches and the stained glass.
And him and Erica would go sometimes.
Yeah, well, Erica's a cradle Catholic, but she ended up kind of like me. I grew up Catholic and First Communion and went to Catholic high school, but then I ended up becoming a Christian in college through a Protestant church, through a non-denominational kind of more experience. It's actually Presbyterian, and then it was kind of non-denominational.
How faggy can you get? I was Catholic, then I became a Christian. I mean, how retarded do you have to be to say something like this? Is this Andrew Colvett? This is going to be the guy that ends up outing TPUSA yesterday. Steph's going to play that in a second on the more explosive Israel issue, which is the corollary of whether or not Charlie was Catholic in his worldview on Jews or evangelical. Evangelicals worship Israel practically. So he is basically like, was he becoming Catholic? No, he went to Mass.
And apparently evangelicals are paid very handsomely, not only to support Israel.
Well,
unbelievable.
Well, not apparently. That is
fact.
Fact. So
that is incredible.
The evangelical movement is deep. Well, the deeper pockets than that even. Charlie lost one little donor. The $2 million is small for a Jewish donor, right? Look at how big TPUSA was. Does this strike anyone else as strange? A little, college to college, university to university chapter thing. Hey, let's have fun debating liberals. There are a million of these things. How is it this big? Because of its association with Zionism. And Charlie was all along until the last year or two, very, very pro-Israel. It was October the 7th, 2 years ago, where he started noticing. The term is noticing.
And losing shekels.
But that was, I think it was more in the last year. But so this guy Colvett is just, he's an empty suit. He's not even wearing a suit. People say I should wear a suit. I wear a suit when I go on fancy shows, right? I'm in my home office here. But listen to what else he says.
And I think Erica kind of follows that same path. She and I share that.
Also, by the way, I just want to draw attention to, she's posted a photo of her and Charlie and the kids in Mass before, and somebody in the comment section said, oh, are you guys converting? And she said, no, we just like attending sometimes. So she herself had said no.
Yeah,
probably.
and I think Charlie, one of the things Charlie really hated worshiping in like a gym, you know, or some sort of kind of blank space.
Okay, so I mean, we established the connection. The Catholic worldview is connected to a whole suite of ideological sub-worldviews. And one of them is being very, very skeptical of, institutionally, of Israel and modern Judaism. Okay, so that's why this matters partly now. What came out yesterday, after about 24 hours from Monday afternoon, today's Wednesday, Monday afternoon, Candace, produced this text thread of 9 people. It was herself, Charlie, Jewish Josh Hammer, no friend of mine, and 6 others. One of the texters sounded like Tucker, because I know the way he has a very distinct voice on text, but I can't say I know that at all. But he would have been a friendly, because they're friendlies, Tucker and Candace. But I'm just guessing. But 6 others whom she hasn't named yet, and she only named Josh Hammer, and it was clear. Charlie was like, I lost another $2 million Jewish donor. These people are a walking stereotype. I guess I'm not going to be bullied into this shit. I will not do it. I will not play this way. I guess I have to seriously start reconsidering my pro-Israel, pro-Jew standpoint. And he'd said something in August about, I hope they don't come after me, bro. I hope they don't come at me, bro. I hope they don't go for it. I hope they don't Munich me. Israel has like more killings, more assassinations on foreign nationals than any other country under its belt. 2,700 on record. How many are off record? 27,000 since World War II. Israel is evil. Okay? Any way you slice it, Israel is evil. And so Charlie turning around on this, taking the Catholic view on this, that really, the Pope St. Pius X view. We can't support this. It's evil. The place in the world where they hate Christians most is Israel. Where they spit on Christians the most is Israel. So we can't support it. To the extent we support it, it's just got to be, hey, we're trying to baptize y'all. That's it. Boom, that's it. So Charlie was turning around. Now, from Monday afternoon to Tuesday afternoon, it felt like a weird mesalliance of left people and right, or on the right wing, normie, lefty kind of semi right wingers, and then far right wingers were saying, "Oh, Candace is lying. Candace is lying," and I'm like, I don't think someone with this much skin in the game would falsify a text conversation. That is instant defamation. But I don't know. I mean, I don't think she would do this. And I was kind of texting her husband, George, for a little confirmation. But by yesterday, it was confirmed. And I didn't want to ask, was this falsified? I didn't think it seriously would be. These are smart people, George and Candace. They're not going to do that. And then yesterday, 24 hours after she dropped it, what's his face, McBuckets over here, Andrew Colvett, says the following.
Started this show to address some of the things that have been going around on public, namely about a group text chain that has been made known and released by Candace Owens. And I just want to address it head on because, that was a screen grab that I had shared with people. So it is authentic. And I want to go into it because I actually am really excited that the truth is out there. I first started this show to address...
I'm sure you are.
He's very excited.
Yeah, I'm sure you're excited that Candace was completely vindicated. Candace, your diametrical opponent as regards this topic, that you're completely having to vindicate her because it was going to happen as an eventuality. I'm sure you're pumped, and you're not just getting out ahead of a story that completely devastates the lies that you and TPUSA have been telling to mischaracterize Charlie Kirk's ideological metamorphosis.
Because they still have a business to run, right? So, it makes sense why they may not want Charlie's where he was going to come out, that he was pulling away from Israel. If they have to now, without Charlie, they have to keep TPUSA running, and obviously they don't want to lose more Jewish donors. So it's like it's kind of funny. Like Candace just kind of pushed their hand and was just like, you're going to talk about this.
The insinuated note here is you don't get big. You don't get to be a 9-figure, like whatever it is, S Corp, or however they've registered, unless you are in tech, in which case you're probably in bed with Israel anyway. Or if you're just doing what a million other businesses have tried, but you become a 9-digit business, you're stumping for Israel. That's how it works. I mean, that's just what I don't know how many of you guys out there know that, parish orphans, retrogrades. A lot of you are JQ pilled, but that's just how it is. If someone does an ordinary business that anybody else can do, and yet it's like $1 billion, like they run a lemonade stand, and instead of making $5.75 in an afternoon, they make $5.75 million. Israel's probably involved. This is a general rule of thumb that people in the know all know. And, having a little college, Republicans group. Oh, but we debate liberal. There are a million. I've been to a million colleges, right? I have several degrees. I've spoken at a lot of colleges. Whether it's college Republicans or Federalist Society, which I was a chapter president of Federalist Society in law school or whatever. How is TPUSA like the biggest thing since sliced bread? And even at Charlie's funeral, everyone's talking about, this business is too big to fail. They weren't even talking about the man, Charlie Kirk. Even his widow was barely talking about Charlie Kirk. She was talking about, well, I guess I have to be CEO now. So she was literally saying, this is my work family. I want to just stay behind and mourn with my kids, but I have my work family now. Or others were saying this about her, and she was ceding to that. It's bizarre. It's because Israel's involved. Whenever you get these gross, out of all proportion dimensionalities, it's because Israel's involved. With situations like this, when it's something where Israel could potentially be involved. I'm talking about foreign influence, where undue foreign influence could or ought to be seen as playing a role. I'm not talking about, I don't know, but it is all pervasive. It does seep into everything. Okay, so is he done with his quote, Colvett? After he was discrediting, he said, it's authentic. After he discredited or attempted to discredit the idea that Charlie was becoming Catholic, why did they really care? I know evangelicals don't like Catholics, and they're very illiterate in their anti-Catholicism. They think we like worship Mary and the saints, and that you have to have less than half your teeth and be married to, and half of your relatives or more were married to a first cousin or a sister.
Each other.
To think this way, but it's very popular with evangelicals because a lot of them are this way. So I know there's a bias and a hatred of Catholics, but no one cares this much. The reason it was such a hot topic, the reason Colvett was out there denying he was becoming Catholic is because everyone knows what that signifies. Catholics do not like Israel. We don't drink that Kool-Aid. Evangelicals do, the ones that think they're really right-wing. Even out here in the reddest state in the Union, I have a neighbor who flies a Confederate flag, Dixie, okay, based, but a Star of Ramdan or whatever it's called, Israel flag. What?
It's common.
Are you?
We see that a lot. We'll see the American flag and right underneath it in the conservative areas, an Israel flag. It's crazy.
Because they're evangelicals, because they're kooky with it. They've been totally brainwashed, and their mega pastors are being paid off and stuff like that by these Jewish mega donors. So this is the reality. This is why, as Thomas Massey said, every single member of Congress besides himself, senator or representative, besides Thomas Massey, has a Jewish or AIPAC or pro-Israel handler. Isn't that crazy? That's how much we have in occupied government. As Zion, I'll use a big term now, a Zionist occupied government. I'm sorry to have to tell you this if this is news, but that's what's going on with Candace. And the crazy thing is, even after she really did as a matter of brute fact, vindicate herself yesterday, people were still trying to cope. And I'm like, I want to talk about what credibility is. Credibility is not something that Candace Owens has to mind, or that Charlie Kirk had to mind, or that Erica Kirk does, or TPUSA, or Nick Fuentes, or Daily Wire, or Timothy J. Gordon. Anybody who speaks into the void, this is what I'm calling the void. I don't care how big your audience is. Anybody that weighs in on this shit has to know that credibility, or its inverse, stalks us like a wraith, stalks the hall like a haunting refrain. Because see, when you say, this is what I mean, it's almost like an infinite regression curve. The second Candace Owens on Monday afternoon says, hey, look at this, and she drops it on Twitter and maybe a few other places, boom, look at this text conversation. She just largely vindicated her credibility. And then there are all these talking heads who don't like her. And I'm not saying you have to like someone to say what they're saying is true. I'm not saying you have to dislike someone to question what they're saying. But many of her enemies who have personal animus toward her were like, bullshit, I don't believe it. Okay, here's what I'm saying about the infinite regression curve of credibility. It's a wraith that stalks the halls in season and out of season, my friends. Once you're one of those commentators that says BS, I call BS, Candace, then your credibility is on the line. The credibility curve never ends. It is a line, not a point, as they say in mathematics. So then when yesterday, goofy Andrew Colvett in his very Gen X, the blazer with the t-shirt look, come on, guy.
It's like Frankenstein.
Yeah, come on.
It's Halloween.
Boris Karloff. This is not a cool look. That is 1998, maybe 2002. You're not Gen X. You're younger than that. Get over it. You're younger than I am. And that look is older than me. Don't do it. This goofball comes out there and he says, okay, well, I'm going to try to spin this positively. But yeah, Candace dropped a real conversation. He dropped a little bit of unhot fire in the form of an attempted condemnation of her. Well, you shouldn't have done this. Hey, it's all's fair in love and war, bro. People are calling her a liar for referencing things like this conversation. If you're going to call me a liar, I'm going to drop it. And she did. And I'm not white knighting here. I'm just saying her credibility was rehabilitated to whatever extent people might have opined that it had been jeopardized. It was rehabilitated about, by dropping the conversation, by dropping screenshots of that conversation on Monday night. And then it was redoubled yesterday when goofy Colvett comes out and says, so that was real. Now all of the credibility of all of her collective detractors is called into question. And see, my own credibility by doing a video saying, what about Candace Owens and her claims? Now it is on the table, right? Like an ante, like an ante at a poker table. Now it's up there. So if it turns out that she was, it was falsified and Colvett was in on it or whatever, the crazy cope by her detractors are saying now, Colvett, her kind of enemy, was in on it and that's why he vindicated her. Well, then I would have to, my credibility's on the line. And then there are ways to rehabilitate it in an honest way. I'd say, I guess I was tricked. You rehabilitate it by coming correct. But that's not what's going to happen. Now, I just want everyone out there to see the stakes of the game. Twitter and other social media, but especially Twitter, has rearranged the stakes of the credibility game in the minds of a lot of, I think, young people. We have this is a young male audience in this show. I get along well with young people. Half my friends are, half my age. But so this is not like a boomer show. But I will say that people that have spent the majority of there's even a difference between younger Zoomers versus older Zoomers, cusper Zoomers, because cusper Zoomers still spent a lot of their life not on social media. The ones that grew up on social media don't understand the stakes of the credibility game. If my enemy, Billy the Kid, says something true after I've said, I think that's false, I come out and I say, okay, look, credit where due. He was right. I was wrong. I'm doing that partly to be magnanimous because I like to fancy myself a fellow who's captured some aspect of the Aristotelian virtue of magnanimity. But practically, the reason you do that is to rehabilitate your credibility. Right? Because that's the name of the game. Those of us who do, I mean, this is my job at this point, is to commentate in a credible way. And sometimes it involves speculation. I think so-and-so is going to be Pope. I think Pope Francis is going to do thus and such. I did a lot of that. I think Pope Francis is going for this. I think this Sankt Gallen Mafia member's the real Don, even though they're saying it's this other guy. Speculation's part of it. But when you're wrong, you got to admit it. And the older Zoomers seem to get it. And people older than that, obviously, but pure social media types don't get it. They're like, well, I don't get, why are you giving credit?
They just shift
to your
the goal
enemies?
Points.
They just shift the goal points.
I noticed this a lot with the younger generation.
Well, it's Mott and Bailey.
Yeah,
it's Mott and Bailey.
She was wrong. And then when you're like, those texts are fake. And then you're like, they weren't fake. And then they're like, okay, well, she was wrong about this other thing, though.
Well,
yeah,
there are people that obviously know my worldview. You know, I'm the case for patriarchy guy. So they're like, oh, these are made up, Tim. And I was like, I don't think they are, bro. And then they're like, well, Tim, you're super right wing. You're the patriarchy Don. What's up? Shouldn't, the next day when she's vindicated, well, shouldn't she be at home? I'm like, well, that's a general claim. I definitely don't have a problem with that, as everyone knows, with that general claim. But if you're tendering a general claim toward a specific means, Aquinas talks about this, then it's dishonest. Because you can't defend a specific claim with a general ground like that. Oh, well, Candace, shouldn't she just go home? She's just talking too much. It's like, well, but we were talking about a very specific claim that she made and vouchsafed for herself on her own behalf. And now I think there's some strategery in what she's doing, where she's referencing dreams. I think she's maybe luring enemies into a trap to mock her, where she's saying, oh, I had a dream about Charlie Kirk.
She's done this like 8 times,
and it keeps working,
and they keep doing it. She'll say something, and then she'll let everybody just like stew on it for 2 weeks
and mock her,
and then she comes out. It's like, how many times are you guys gonna fall for this?
Yeah,
it's like, just how about this, and let's all just wait and see what she has.
Produces receipts. Everyone says she doesn't have the receipts. I'm not talking about I'm talking about this issue, the Charlie Kirk issue. She seems to have a lot of the receipts, and by receipts, it's not as rare as actually keeping an old Circuit City receipt on your first CD player from 1993. That's unlikely. But receipts, keeping screenshots of important group text convos is something even I began doing. The first person who told me that he does this, even with mine, was Milo. I always keep screenshots. I'm like, well, that's messed up. Every person who's in the public eye, he's like, I have you, I have this person, I have everyone I've ever talked to. I'm like, that's messed up. I don't do it as a crowbar for others. I do it as a defense against the crowbar. So when I take screenshots, it does not surprise me at all that Candace has these kinds of receipts. So these are the stakes of the game, the credibility game. When you're wrong, you say so. When you're enemy, or you're maybe not enemy, but a rival on the right, or whatever you want to call, however you want to characterize a lot of the people that are detracting her yesterday, today, the day before, they don't get it. Some of the younger Zoomers are like, well, why are you saying this? Aren't you the patriarchy guy? I'm like, look, all I'm saying is this claim she made that she's been making for 3 weeks matters. A bunch of you called BS. She said she had receipts, and you called BS on that. That's a second call out to say, oh, that's BS. Charlie wasn't turning against Israel. And then she goes, oh, I have receipts. And they're like, I call BS on that too. So now you have 2. You're double or nothing each time. And then she just waited, lured you in, and then comes out, drops the receipts. And then a third BS calling on Monday night. Everyone was all over Twitter. It's fake. And I was like, you're digging your own grave. And then Tuesday, Andrew Colvett comes out and says it's real. People were like, we really wanted you to weigh in on this, Tim. I mean, thanks for valuing what I say. What can I possibly add? I'm a truth guy. I'm an honesty guy. Whether I like someone, don't like. I mean, I've that's a weird thing because I have zero beef with Candace. I have, lots of groypers in this audience, fewer sort of conic normies in this audience, but some of them, I don't have personal beef with a lot of these people. Most of my beef is with more in the Catholic scene.
And I think that a lot of the groyper Candace Owens beef would be gone, like if they just worked it out. So honestly, it's like everybody like trenching in and being like, oh, she's a liar and all these things. Like, guys, for a fact, like if Nick Fuentes and Candace Owens had another conversation and they were actually like getting together on the Jew issue and it was a productive talk,
which is what they should do.
Which is what they definitely should do.
100%.
Like you guys would like totally flip back over to being pro Candace Owens. So just
Groyper curse off, Groyper war off. Just I mean that's what they need to do.
So they should drop it.
They should link arms here because TPUSA, I think, is the enemy on this one, and I don't think it should be. Israel suspicious party versus Israel suspicious party. I don't think that's the way to take this one, but I'm not going to weigh in too much there. I'm just saying
it's just funny to me with her strategy. It's like she's done this so many times where she says something and I think she knows she's going to come over the top, say it in a way, maybe even with the dream. I told you when she said the dream thing and everybody was making fun of that, I was like, I bet you she has something that she's going to release in like 3 weeks, and then it's gonna like everybody was making fun of the dream. It's gonna be like, oh, so she had this piece of evidence like this whole time, or what I mean? It's just this keeps happening and everyone keeps responding the exact same way where they like go bananas for 2 weeks and then she's like,
we don't know.
Here it is.
We don't know that it's that level of gamesmanship. If it is, you could criticize, well, isn't that kind of gamey? I mean, maybe, yeah. I probably wouldn't do it that way, but it is luring people in. And if you have receipts, you have receipts. And people can say, well, drop them all right now. But it's proprietary.
I think it's funny.
I'm a straightforward guy. I'd probably drop it all right away. But I will say this. When Steph released Ask Your Husband and we had suddenly more enemies coming at us from the right and the left, you guys still don't know that whole story. When you have people coming at you from the right and the left, you do start being like, how can I lure them into some traps? I'm not going to lie. That was the worst it ever got for us. And Candace has it.
Or like, how can we rig the string is attached to the fence and then a trap door opens? Like, how do we do this in real life?
There's a panther in the trap door. It will eat 3 of our enemies. There will be poison darts, which, destroy the remaining 7.
Somebody said this is exactly how a girl would do it. It's true. It is true. That's probably why it's funny to me, because like I keep watching her like succeed at doing this, where she'll like say something and then people get mad and then she'll release it. And I'm just laughing. I'm like, oh my gosh, here it goes again. She's doing it again. And nobody seems to get the pattern. And that's one of the marks of human intelligence, is understanding pattern recognition. It's like, this just keeps happening.
Yeah.
Or she'll say something and then people are getting upset. Then boom, the evidence comes out. And everyone's like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's pretty clear that she wasn't just speaking out of turn when she said Charlie was becoming Catholic. I'm not going to go to this sham of a funeral. It seems fetty. All of this points towards his changing view on Israel. And then those 3 things she's saying points towards Israel having something to do with September 10th, so I guess that's the most out there claim. But, if you have evidence, whether it's circumstantial or material, you have evidence and it shapes the way you believe. I'm not saying I have it. I can just watch this and see what's, I know the difference between shit and shinola. That's all I'm saying. So I don't think it's not interpretive at this point. The once Colvett, we call that an admission by a party opponent. Once Colvett made the admission by the party opponent, and he said, no, that's right. That's right. And then he tried to spin it. It's like, oh, that's a classic move. That's a classic rehabilitation move. And he didn't do it so well. There's no way to actually convince people. Yes, I'm glad that Candace produced this text conversation where Charlie was saying he's kind of done with Jewish donors.
I'm so relieved. That's what he meant to say. He's like, oh dear. Okay. Well, now that I've been forced, I must tell you how excited I am to be forced into acknowledging something that I was trying not to acknowledge for many weeks.
Yeah, it's like someone caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They're like, "Oh, thank you." Thank you for catching
me with my hand in the cookie jar.
Yeah, a
so
burglar
excited.
with the cat burglar mask on gets caught and it's like, "Oh, thank you. Thank goodness you're here, police." With the spotlight on him. That no one buys it, bro. He's not such a clever guy, and he looks like a monster in a blazer.
I just want to see, I know this is like such a female thing, but I just want to see more people on the right giving each other credit for what they're owed. Like Candace was owed credit for being correct about this.
Yeah.
And I'd say even the same thing to the Groypers. Obviously, Nick Fuentes is owed a lot of credit for the things that he's saying. I just want to see more credit, just being
things that he's been saying for 8 years. Yeah, if the right wing had more magnanimity, then everyone would say, "Oh, we should unban," and it's a little bit happening now. We should unban Nick Fuentes. What he was saying 7-8 years ago that was considered heresy at the time, before everyone noticed everything, he's actually one of the first guys in. He's like the Marines. We should not only unban him, we should give him a medal of honor. He was the first one in. But they don't do that. The right is grifty. So the right still keeps him mostly banned, talks about him like he's the devil. And then so his followers are bitter because there's not enough magnanimity. And then other people who are slower to it, this was not my big issue. Israel has never been my big issue. People that are slower to it are now like talking about it more. So a lot of Fuentes's OG Groyper people will be like, "Oh, now you're talking about it." It's like, well, dude, I got educated on it. I mean, I can't be first to all of the bases, right? I mean, I've been spending my last 5 years defending the case for patriarchy. I was one of the Marines taking shrapnel in the face on the woman question, like the WQ. There are more women in the world than Jews.
Oh gosh, I don't know how to find comfort in either one of those.
That's what I'm saying. So I've been doing my own thing, but really around COVID, it's like, oh, wow, I think this is right. So I try to give credit where due. And then when I borrow from the people that should be accredited, I say, well, I gave you credit. So it's not like I'm plagiarizing. I just said, it's kind of 18, 19, 20, I was being JQ pilled, finalizing around 2021. That wasn't my issue, though. It's still not my issue. So they should give like Nick Fuentes credit, and then there wouldn't be this bitterness. And then they can, once you give someone credit, you can cite them in your paper. And he was one of the first ones. So same thing here. Now it's like, well, Candace deserves credit for being right, standing on the shoulders of others. Oh yeah, Israel does really run stuff. Okay. And it appears that this was operative in this big Charlie Kirk case that none of us can stop talking about. And it seems like we are lied to about. It seems like we're being actively lied to in some ways by TPUSA about. Seems kind of massive. So I don't know. I don't know about all the claims that everyone was in the know on an assassination attempt. I'm not going to weigh in there. But Elijah Schaffer was speculating that Josh Hammer had tweeted on September the 9th, like based about a Trump tweet about assassinations. Remember, Charlie was killed the next day. I look at that more skeptically because I'm like, well, dude, all of us on September, I think 7th, 8th, 9th, maybe it was just 8th and 9th, we're talking nonstop about Irina Karutska. And Trump had tweeted out about Irina Karutska's brutal black killer, like, let's do a public execution. So that's all I was tweeting about on the 8th and 9th. Now I'm not Josh Hammer. You got to
tell everybody some funny behind the scenes with your debate with Josh Hammer.
Oh,
it was.
So we were brought into Ole Miss to do. I was a formal in law school. I was Federalist Society president. Federalist Society of Ole Miss Law School brought me and Josh Hammer in to debate like 14th Amendment, substantive due process, and he thought I was going to go somewhere and I didn't. And I was just scalding him on, look, if you like whatever he calls it, he's like a wannabe Adrian Vermeule, common sense constitutionalism or something. And so I'm like, well, whether you like it or not, you are a pro 14th Amendment guy. And he'd said in all these cases, well, I don't like this aspect of the 14th Amendment, but I was showing how his position required it. And he got really mad. And he's like, well, there's this Bostic case that you haven't even talked to any about. He's big. He'd been publishing papers, which is what you do when you're a legal scholar, but publishing papers on this Bostic case. And he's like, you haven't even mentioned that. I was like, because I'm attacking the root of your ideas, of your pro 14th Amendment ideas. And you don't like it, but you can't defend against it. So he kept criticizing the way I was saying Bostic. This was like a timed, formalized debate. You guys think Jay Dyer, who's a friend, I mean, Jay just gets hot under the collar in debates, but I like Jay. Jay's a Christian. Jay's a friend of mine. We always get a meal. I don't really care if he calls me Creed. Okay. Yeah, I afford more but when you're little Josh Hammer and you're being as rude to me as he was being in person at that Ole Miss debate, you like interrupting me the way I was saying the Bostic case. I think I was calling it Bostock or something. I was like, this case isn't a part of my case against your common sense constitutionalism or whatever it is. He was so mad. He was red. He was interrupting. And a couple of the professors that had invited us in, I won't mention names. One of mine was a visiting professor from when I was in law school. I didn't feel a lot of loyalty there. Was totally taking his side, letting him interrupt. And all
that professor was rude. I won't say his name, but I remember sitting there and being like, this was unprofessional. The way that professor handled that.
Because they didn't like that I was coming out against Josh Hammer.
No.
And they didn't like the method of attack, but they couldn't defend against the way I was attacking his and really his received position from Adrian Vermeule. They all worship that guy. So I was just going at it with facts, and you couldn't attack my logic. It was impregnable logic. It was a really tight argument I had. And they bungled the sound. We were supposed to have a video and sound, and it all got bungled. That might or might not have been an accident, because I was really handing him his ass. Little Josh Hammer. He's like 4'3" or something. He's a little taller than
and I think like the night before he had like did a tweet about how him and his girlfriend like spent the night at some like fancy hotel. He did some tweet, and you were like making jokes about like guys who like aren't married and like are fornicating and stuff. I mean, it got pretty contested.
Oh no, I was like, well, from your tradition, because I mean, we were talking about Griswold versus Connecticut. We're talking about Roe versus Wade, and I was like, well, look, you're Jewish. So Christians can relate to this, not me. It was getting uncivilized.
You kept saying like from the Western tradition, like,
yeah, it's like to a Western Christian. What's not civilized is Griswold versus Connecticut or Roe versus Wade. Now, abortion's a Jewish value. I'm quoting every billboard I've ever seen. Contraception is a Jewish value, but that's where you and I we differ, Josh. So we were supposed to go out to lunch afterwards. No, none of that. It was very uncivilized. And I will always. I told Jay last time we were hanging out, like, he's coming through here. Stop by my house. Stay here. We're not Josh Hammer though. He's not going to be stopping by my house. I don't
swim in
mind.
my pool, but he can't come in my house.
No, he can't even swim in my pool. Well, he's too short, right?
We'd have to put those little floaties on him to make sure that we weren't.
I don't know why a short person couldn't swim. I just wanted to make fun of how short he is. So look, I definitely have Candace's back on Josh Hammer. I don't like that dude, but I don't necessarily know that his September the 9th tweet meant that he was in on an assassination attempt. I don't know, but I also don't have the receipts. So we'll wait and see on that one.
Are we doing a local show today?
Yeah, we'll do a local show.
All right, look out for that link on locals. I'll put that on the page in a few minutes, and it'll be right there at the top. So
speaking of looking out for stuff, I mean, I'm waiting to see what Candace drops in the near future, because I'd like to know who else was in that 9-part text convo, and I'd love to get more details, hopefully in the near future. Yeah, I know she's waiting for people to step in the trap, but I'm kind of waiting to see. And with bated breath, I'll say. Also interesting, I just saw this going live. I didn't know that Fuentes was going on Dave Smith's show. That's very interesting. I'm probably going to be listening to that as I take my daughter to piano lesson. So God bless you all. I think credibility is the name of the game here, and it is it's not a point, it's a line. So when you weigh in, I want you guys to remember this. When you weigh in, you're like, so-and-so is not credible. People have said this about me and Steph. Oh, they're just extremists. They're misogynists. Well, look at all those people now. You know, a lot of those people that called me and Steph misogynists have jumped on the bandwagon, and I wish I could tell you this whole tale. Some of them have since published books, anti-feminism books, because they jumped on the anti-feminist bandwagon.
When it became okay to say.
Which proves that credibility is a thing. Credibility and counter credibility and counter credibility, because anytime you weigh in and you call someone incredible, your credibility is on the line and your integrity is on the line. And if you don't give them credit where due, then you become the liar who's not worthy of credo belief. So that's my Mike Brady lesson for the day. Mike Brady was a gay man raising 3 boys, and it's horrifying.
Thanks, Dad.
And he did not love Carol. God bless you all. Day is Volt.